Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live. Glad to be back with you all. I missed being with you last week. Hope that you were able to find and seek some wisdom for yourself last week. I was involved in a business challenge, and so I wasn't able to be with you. Want to remind everyone as you join to be sure and to share where you're joining from. Type into the comments, and also want to make sure that everyone feels welcome and free to share thoughts and comments. Really look forward to hearing from everyone as we engage in seeking to gain wisdom together. And as always, I like to remind everyone that we what we mean by seeking wisdom. Wisdom is a process of going through a journey, and it starts with gaining knowledge. As we gain knowledge around us, either by going to formal education or observation, whatever, we pick up that information and begin to process it. And as we process and truly begin to learn, we then start taking that information and apply it in our life to gain understanding and experience, which is the next level of the process. And then, of course, the key process or key part of the process that makes the difference for us in terms of having knowledge or understanding versus wisdom is when we begin to see the world and our knowledge and understanding on a much bigger scale, looking at particularly looking at things from outside of ourselves, so that it's beyond just how it affects me. We begin to have the perspective of how it affects others, not just immediately around us, but in bigger picture. And for those of us that are of a spiritual bent, the way I like to express it is it's when we begin to see ourselves in the world through God's eyes, so that we have that better understanding, so that we can then apply our knowledge and experience and understanding from a better perspective. So that's what we mean by wisdom here on the Wisdom Seeker Live. Welcome to Ambreen and Astro and Nod. Karen, welcome. Karen's one of our regulars. Chris, glad to have you. And hope that you all will jump in and share your thoughts as we go along. And so our topic today is about engaging on LinkedIn, but it applies to social media in general. What prompted this is some recent engagements that I have had on LinkedIn, and also talking to others about this offline. And that is the idea of dealing with situations where we maybe are not responded to in a favorable light. We get people that, as we sometimes call it, troll us, and they, in the extreme cases, people immediately jump into a post and start commenting, and they are commenting primarily by calling names and implying or being explicit in challenging our intelligence or our understanding, and so on. Another aspect to this is one that I recently, or on a poll that commented about people using social media, especially LinkedIn, in terms of trying to become a dating site, as the term goes, where there are improper approaches to post, or even through direct messaging. I know I get challenged with that some as well. So a lot of different aspects to it. And one solution in the past that was used an awful lot was just to simply block people. And I understand that. Welcome, Gladstone. Glad to have you with us. By the way, those of you that are regulars know that one of our regulars, Rosemary from Australia, is normally with us. Well, what I discovered is that with their time change recently and our time change, that it just, rather than bringing us closer together from a timing standpoint, actually made it harder. And so Rosemary, at least for now, won't be able to join us because at this point it is, I believe she said, is the show is showing up at midnight, and that's just too late. And I appreciate that. So I will be, I've toyed with this, and I'm going to revisit the idea of having a Wisdom Seeker episode that will be more user friendly, if you will, to those that are in other time zones, especially places like Australia and some of the other regions that are, 12, 14 hours difference. And so I'll be looking at that and considering it. Good morning, Zaid. Glad to have you. Zaid's one of our regulars as well. So as we go along, I hope that you will share some of your experiences with this topic, because I think it affects a lot of people. And my goal is just to share and hear your wisdom in regards to how to be able to engage in these situations without just blocking or burning a social media bridge, if you will. I know I had a good friend one time say, be careful about burning any bridges, because you never know later when you might need to be able to connect to that person or to engage with them in other ways. And that becomes valuable to be able to be connected. So we're going to look at some different ways to approach that. And one of the ways that I think we should do, and this is something I've learned to practice, is just like in regular time engaging with people in person, is to have a measured response, whatever that looks like for you. For example, one that's a common measured response when situations arise is stop and count to 10, slowly count to 10. Another is taking a deep breath, whatever. But when people respond to your social media and they respond in inappropriate ways, then consider just not reacting and type something out in haste and hit post and really start something or end a relationship a networking relationship that could be there. So it's real important to really not react and really not overreact, but rather take time, consider it, and respond. And what I have found is that alone helps, because there are a couple of things that occur when we do that. One is that we have time to get perspective, get wisdom. Okay. Consider this more than just that moment. Secondly, I've had situations where before I respond, others respond and begin to address the situation, and sometimes even in a better way than I can. So that measured response, that moment to think and consider, is an important part of being able to be wise in our social media interaction. And so Gladstone, you're showing up as LinkedIn user. I apologize, but want to put up your comment here. It says, after getting a connection request, I check their profile and then accept it. I feel obliged and send them a thank you mail. However, many don't bother to respond. Yeah, that's a tough one, Gladstone, because a lot of people are, I say a lot, there are a number of people that are involved on social media, LinkedIn, whatever, and their primary focus is to gain connections. And I appreciate the motivation there and the desire, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't be something that we are just getting numbers. Unfortunately, there are people that are driven by what is called vanity metrics, which they're just trying to get likes and comments. They really aren't concerned about engaging and having dialogue. And that's unfortunate, but they're out there and they're going to do what you suggest. Or the other version of that is they send a connection request. And after considering it, we accept the request. And then within sometimes even seconds or minutes, we're getting propositioned with something to buy, a service to have, whatever. And I don't believe that that is a good practice either. In fact, one of the most prolific posts that I've ever had was on this very topic about 4 years ago. And it went viral, and we had 1.8 million views on it, lots of comments, and the great percentage of the comments were, don't do that. Okay, don't be rude. Don't be don't look at people on social media, LinkedIn in particular, in regards to just being an opportunity to try and sell them something. And definitely don't be propositioning for dating or social reasons, especially not initially. It doesn't mean that relationships don't develop, friendships and other romantic relationships. Those are all possible, but that's not what we do right from the beginning. Zaid makes a comment, says, for me, I would act and try my best not to react. Even if the situation was bad, then I would try to think in the rational of what was talked about. I try to remember the 5-second rule, a good one, yes, to wait 5 seconds, cool off before replying, especially if what we're talking about involves lots of emotions. Certainly, considering the topic has to be part of it. And again, I like the 5-second rule at a minimum. Sometimes for me, I'll even, normally I try to engage as quickly as possible on posts and comments, but sometimes I will purposely hold off and think it through. And I'll even sometimes watch how other people react to give me additional perspective before I respond. That way, we stand a better chance of maintaining a network connection and to be able to have that future potential by not burning that bridge. Good morning, Jane. Glad to have you with us, and look forward to your comments as well. But we just need to approach things cautiously or slowly. Maybe cautiously is not necessarily the case. What I have found is, first I have to read through and consider what's being said, and I am really learning to be more attentive to what's being written. I also make it a point not to assume motivation. It's real easy to assume, well, they're just being difficult, or they're just being obnoxious, whatever term. And as I grow older, I'm coming better to understand the whole concept of judgment versus judgmentalism. And what I have come to realize is judgment is something we all have to do. And if you don't, you are being unwise in that. But judgment versus judgmentalism is different. Judgmentalism is when we make observation of behaviors or words, and we assume a certain motivation or intent on someone or what's going on in their heart, and We aren't qualified, folks. I don't care how smart, how wise, how anything you are, we are not qualified to be judgmental of someone else, to assume or apply intent on their part. Unless unless they tell you it or it's inferred other ways in what they say, stay away from that. That gets us in so much trouble, especially on social media, because communication is a big challenge. Because with communication on social media, quite often we don't get context, we don't get body language, you don't get to read what people's facial expressions and so on, which affect the intent or affect how it comes across. That includes even voice inflection, because you can make one comment with differing voice inflections and it will be a very different comment. So just be really, really mindful of not applying judgmentalism in responding to people. Jane has a comment. Reflection is important. It's better to respond than react. With Jane, that is without any doubt that, again, some method we should use to consider before we respond, such as what Zaid mentioned. The 5-second rule is a good one. Okay. Gladstone makes comment. At times I respond with a contrary view based on my experience or lessons learned. There seems to be some sort of irritation on the creator of the post. Welcome, Kwame. Glad to have you. Yeah, people are challenged so much with how to deal with a dissenting or contrary view, and that is a big problem. I have a theory, and my theory is that the reason that people respond so negatively to contrary or dissenting views is because their value as a person is challenged. And I just remind people, our value is not wrapped up in our ability to make good comments or whatever on social media. Our value is not wrapped up in people's opinions. And when we can get beyond trying to protect our value on social media and other networking situations or any relational situation, we will find that we respond differently, at least at a minimum, with less emotion. And it's our emotional responses that quite often get us in trouble. Zaid comments that I recently had a similar experience. All what I did was to ask a simple question, and I got so much hate from some of the responders. The post author didn't even try to balance or control the conversation. He left it as it's going. Good morning, Dr. Shama. So glad to have you with us. Yeah, that it's really remarkable, Zaid, how that when we are exchanging on social media, that we can get such strong reactions from people over a simple question. And I go back to, I believe that comes from people being in a defensive posture, because your question, rather than challenging a precept or a concept, these people feel challenged in their value. And so they react as if they're under attack rather than just considering the question at hand. And so, yeah, it's a real problem. And by the way, one of the things I've learned, knowing this about much of our networking and relationships, I consider how I approach the situation, especially if I'm going to ask a challenging question or take a contrary view, and that I will consider how can I phrase my question without it being, or trying to limit the potential that it will be taken as a personal affront, rather than just an opportunity to address a concept or the question at hand. And it's a challenge. That's why I think that gaining wisdom in regards to this is very important. And a nice thing, though, by the way, as we learn these concepts and gain this wisdom in a social media environment, it helps us in a real life networking environment and in other relationships. Jane has a comment, says, I haven't been trolled, but I have been scammed. I succeeded in getting the scammer to reveal himself and we became friends. Yeah, that's another one, Jane. Excuse me, is that there are people out there that are trying to trick us into support things and or donate or even buy thinking we're purchasing a real item, find out it wasn't ever that at all. And so, but what's really interesting is I have had situations as well, Jane, where what started out to be a negative situation with a little wisdom, a little good consideration of how I respond, react, I was able to change the situation from someone that, and it didn't mean we ultimately agreed on that particular situation, but we developed a basis to be able to converse and a mutual respect. And indeed, we became good connections, friends. And it is possible if we approach it well. And let's see, Gladstone responds, thanks for sharing your experience. I fully understand and appreciate your feelings. It has been very difficult for me as well. Well, and one of the other things, by the way, I'm sorry, I got an itch this morning, is that we ourselves need to be sure that at a foundational level that we aren't trying to prove our value by our social media presence. People sometimes mistakenly think because I have quite a few connections and followers that is such a big thing to me, and it isn't. I respect and appreciate every one of my connections and followers, but that's not life to me. That is part of what goes on. But at the end of the day, whether I get one reaction or none, or I get a million, it doesn't matter in terms of my value as a person. Uh, if I'm trying to gain value as a person by my presence on social media, then all I'm doing is engaging in a popularity contest. And at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, at some point, popularity will change. And if that's where you are depending on value, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to struggle and react, and it's going to not be a good day. So part of it as a social media engager or a content creator, or whatever term you like, don't let your value be in how that post or comment or whatever is seen. Don't get caught up in that. And I'll tell you, I have had the lows, I've had the highs, I've had posts even that I put out, and I think, wow, this will be really valuable and engaging to people, and it kind of goes nowhere. And I can't always explain it. I have speculations, but then I've had situations. In fact, the two most seen and most active posts that I've ever had, I had no idea or even a thought that they would get so much reaction. One of them was back, it's been 5 or 6 years ago now, where I reshared a post of a young man and made a comment myself. And it really changed the trajectory of my presence on LinkedIn. And then, but it was, again, it wasn't something I was thinking very profoundly, or I wish I could say, yeah, it was something brilliant. It was, of course, original, and I try to always be insightful, but next thing I know, it's going crazy. And then the second one that is been really amazing. I prefer to be known about leadership and even counseling, coaching, helping people. Well, this part of this effect of this post was that I've become known as kind of the etiquette guy here on LinkedIn, because that was the post that originally reached 1.8 million views. And just, I was amazed, because I was just commenting. And in fact, it was along the lines of what we're talking about this morning. I'd had a number of my network and friends on LinkedIn that had gotten either trolled or inappropriately propositioned or whatever. And just out of desire to help and somewhat of frustration, I made this post, and it just took off. So don't let your value be caught up in that, because it will wax and wane. And just as you share from your heart, share honest content that offers value to your network, and don't get so caught up in those metrics. And in fact, I have known, and because of my connections, I've known situations where people that have what we think of as big name even get jealous and get mad at each other because one is outdoing the other in terms of numbers of followers, whatever. And that's just not of good value to us as a person or to our network. And so just remind yourself that how you show up on social media doesn't determine your value as a person. And we can talk about that topic sometime if we want to go in depth. But at the end of the day, one of my favorite sayings is, I don't earn my value. It's given to me by my creator. Others don't give me my value, so they can't take it away. And by the way, I can't lose it since I didn't earn it. And our creator gives us intrinsic value, each of us, every one of us, that is there. And our creator's not going to take it away, because our creator has a primary character of love. So let go of that. Quit trying to make your value better, because you can't be any more valuable than you already are. So let's see here. I believe it's Gladstone. Yeah. I'm seeing quite a few so-called influencers who misled with their quotes and messages, but unfortunately they have thousands of followers and are in the limelight. It got cut off. I strongly believe that. So glad. Here we go. Strongly believe that ethics is fundamental in social media as well. Yeah, that has been a recent topic that I've gotten pulled into, and I know there's been some debate and discussion in and around the topic of so-called influencers offering a service to get paid to support content. And there's some pretty strong debate about it going on, and even getting into rules of LinkedIn and so on. And so it'll be a topic that is going to be debated and discussed, and possibly LinkedIn may change rules about it. I do say that when we join LinkedIn and other social media, whether we are cognizant of it or not, we are assigning a legal, ethical agreement that we are supposed to abide by. And so just something to consider as we go forward. And it's real interesting to go in. And because of this, I actually have been reading the policies on LinkedIn and the users agreement. And it's been insightful and interesting. Good morning, Todd. Glad to have you with us this morning. So yes, it is a challenge that we have to consider as we are social media networking and so on. And it's been interesting. Good morning, Dr. Jesmond, or good day in your part of the world. I believe it's evening. Glad to have you. And one of the things that I've seen in this debate going on presently in regards to what we're talking about as far as influencers and them getting paid to advertise or support, is that I've watched this defensiveness among the different parties on this and the reactions to it, very emotional reactions about it, and charges of unethical behavior and so on. And it has been, and it will continue to be quite an interesting discussion, and because there's a lot of emotion in there that I think is unnecessary, because at the end of the day, whether someone is a so-called influencer or someone is just new to social media, our value is no different. We're on equal playing ground. We are all greatly blessed with intrinsic value. So hopefully we can get beyond trying to prove or disprove that, and then discuss the topic in a way that avoids getting a lot of emotion, because unfortunately, when we let emotion control those discussions, it doesn't go well. So being wise in regards to social media involves, so far we've talked about taking a breath, being responsive and not reactive, and also not reading intent into people's comments. Don't, we tend to, especially in printed text, read certain behaviors, read certain, intent. Even we assume certain types of body language and things that we would normally experience or observe in live communication, and we attribute it to comments on social media. That's not a wise approach, because again, we don't know, we're not qualified to judge someone's intent, nor their motivation, what's going on in their heart. So what I suggest is, if you're going to be wise in engaging on social media, take out the whole concept of applying intent, and do not react based on that implied or assumed intent. Because when we do respond outside of what is just written there or communicated, we are getting into dangerous ground on a lot of levels from a principle standpoint. And so just really consider the words that are there and what they say, which the balancing aspect of that, as we engage on social media and we are writing a comment, we have to be really wise in our choice of words, because I like to assume a word to be what it says and what it means as given by the dictionary. Well, what unfortunately at this point in time in our culture, that is not a safe assumption nor a wise assumption, because so many of our words have become very emotionally charged or connotative. And so as I go to write things, I will very often write it and reword it and wordsmith it, especially if it's a sensitive topic and I want to be considerate of it. So, by the way, if you read any of my content, be careful to read the words and to read the words as what they mean. If you're not sure the intent, go look it up in the dictionary, because that's how I approach it. I try to be very thoughtful, and I suggest that we all consider the words we use. It is much more natural or easy for us to communicate effectively face to face, because we then have more context. We then are able to have the other inputs into what's being said. So just really, really be thoughtful of your words. And as you look at other people's words, uh, even if it's poorly done, don't assume motivations, because it is the assumption that that person is attacking us, or that they're using a word in a particular context or connotation that may not be there. So really process before reacting. Okay, Gladstone has a comment, says, I've been approached to endorse their competency skills. It is difficult since without knowing much about their background or character, it is not correct to endorse them. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I am sure there are many genuine cases which I feel very happy to share my views. Yeah, that's another one that's real interesting, Gladstone. I know that there was a time in my LinkedIn journey where it was very popular for someone to either endorse us for skills or write a recommendation with the expectation that we would turn around and do likewise. And I am very careful before I will endorse or recommend anyone. I need to have a level of confidence that they are indeed who they say they are. And that's why I do not, and I hope people don't take it personally, I do not endorse or recommend anyone that I am brand new to if the only extent of my knowledge is their profile on social media and some little bit of interaction. I just don't do it, because if I endorse or recommend someone, that's part of my reputation going out there, and I value the reputation that I have. And my hope is that I continue to be considered trustworthy and real on social media. So I get it, Gladstone. I've had that, and I've had happened to me, and I've tried to uh, be wise in responding how to do so with, and try to avoid hurting people's feelings in the process. And it's not always easy. But social media is an interesting place. Another thing that engaging on social media that we need to be aware of is that there are people, by the way, that you look at social media profiles, and some of them are just out and out fictitious. I mean, the person may be a real person, but how it's presented on their profiles or social media perspective is just all made up. I think quite often that, or most often, that's the rare situation. I think what we see quite often is much akin to modern dating. You know, it's really a funny thing that we use the process of dating to begin to select a potential spouse, and and then the first time we meet them, we go beyond who and what we are in our presentation to try to win them or woo them. And I appreciate that on some level. But at the end of the day, if it's not you and it's not what this person's going to experience of you on an ongoing basis, you're setting yourself up for a relational failure. Because at some point, you know, if you're dressed all to the T to the nines, I guess the expression is, and that's how you present yourself. But in a day to day life, you wear flip flop shorts and a t shirt all the time. What happens when your potential spouse, or who becomes your spouse, realizes you're not the tux and shiny shoes kind of person, but you are a flip flop shorts and t shirt kind of person? Nothing wrong with either case, but let people know and understand. Another situation here on LinkedIn is that everybody looks at LinkedIn and thinks that there are people, so many people are just put out a post, and people run up and say, here, let me give you money because I want you to do something for me because of your post. I'm here to tell you, I've seen it. I know it. I know many of the people that appear to be becoming millionaires off of social media platforms by just posting, and then everybody flocking to them to give them money. And it's not so. It doesn't happen. There are some that will have it happen. It's a rare, very rare occasion. I've had it happen a little bit, but very little. What the value of social media, and as you consider your engagement on social media, you recognize that you're still going to have to work to earn people's trust in their business. And what happens is that many of these folks that appear that way have been effective in using LinkedIn, other social media, to attract interest and even leads, sales leads. It goes back to you get someone interested, and then you have to sell them or convert them from being an interested party to someone that's willing to hand you money to do something or give them something or whatever. And so just be careful. When you look at people and you try to be like them, you're trying to be like something that's not real, and it becomes frustrated. And it doesn't mean that the people that have been successful on LinkedIn are not real people or being honest. We just have to make sure we understand the context of it before we try to chase a dream or an idea that's not even real, not practical, if we don't understand the background. You see the iceberg picture all the time. Success is that little bit that shows up on top, and underneath all the hard work and struggles and all that. So that is a very true consideration, especially here on social media. Let's see. Todd has a comment, says, good points. When there's a difference of opinion, be calm. Emotions that are elicited from the past, that are listed, come from the past. So stay in the now. And as you said, pause and make the next move from the heart. Don't assume. Seek to understand. You and I have spoken on the phone, learned much about you on that call. Thank you, Todd. Yes, we've had some nice conversation. And by the way, as much as I like LinkedIn, I like social media, I think there's value there. It only becomes really real when you have offline in the background, because then you have context of what people are, who they are, what they're doing, and what they're about. And so thank you for that, Todd. And yes, take time to get the context. If there's one piece of information that I would offer on social media, it is to not base anything on a single comment or a single post, because it is not possible, even with the new expanded number of characters capable on a comment, to give full and total context of a given situation unless the concept is so small. It's remarkable. So don't or always seek out the bigger picture and the context of what's going on. By the way, that is the value of approaching it wisely, not just based on knowledge, not even just understanding, but wisely, because when we do that, our own ability to see a bigger context helps us avoid getting ourselves in trouble or saying things we don't need to. Welcome, William. Glad to have you back with us. Let's see. William offers some comment. Words are living things. In too many cases where we don't listen or try to understand where a person is sometimes. In my case, I stop posting when I believe I'm taking credit for things that belong to God. I agree with you completely, William. We shouldn't be seeking out glory and credit here. I know it happens, but that's shouldn't be our goal. Not if we're approaching wisely. It keeps me humble, but sometimes people think other things are going on. I wonder if a lot of people feel that they have might be misunderstood because of issues they have. Um, I think you're right that there is a lot of misunderstanding on social media because, again, the only thing, if we're not making the effort to engage and interact and get to know people, the only thing we know of them is what we see on the profile and what their comments are. And unless those people share insight into their life, we don't have context to assume anything about what they say or don't say. Now, I have to really applaud a number of LinkedIn influencers. If you really watch their content, because I know some of these people, they are clear to offer additional context and try to disarm the notion that they're somehow better, different, or more accomplished than we are. If you watch a lot of them and read their content, that they'll share, not all the time, but at times, about their struggles and how they feel struggled with shyness and things like that. I know for me, I still find it certain irony that I do a 2 weekly live streams now, because when video first came out on LinkedIn, it took me 2 months of practicing and working up the courage or overcoming my discomfort with it before I posted my first video. And it wasn't without the encouragement, even insistence on some friends, and also just learning some little things that the first time I posted a video, I simply introduced a little bit about myself and posted it. A good friend told me, said, quit trying to make it perfect, quit trying to make it movie quality or whatever. Just say what you think and feel and then post it, and don't try to second guess it. And that's what I had to finally do. And over time, I have become much more comfortable in front of the camera on social media. And as it's just as a result of growth and consideration and finding out that I don't have to be perfect in it, that people aren't going to judge me if the production is not perfect, and that if what I have to share is of good enough value, how it's presented or how well groomed or whatever term you want to look at, people are not going to focus on that. They're going to focus on what you've shared. William also offers, and as much as I need money, I wouldn't take money from anyone for what I post. I believe that we should give something that leads people to hope or strive to work hard and achieve with integrity, so that not only do you appreciate what you accomplish, but are willing to share with others. Certainly so much value in that, William, and just adding value to our network, because that is one of our universal designs, is to help each other. And to couch it in biblical terms, we're supposed to comfort those with the comfort we've received. And that means that what we share is not there to, especially from a one-on-one basis, not there to profit, but rather to add value. Now, with that said, I do not have any problems with people that want to share what they do and what they're about, and in order to have other people say, hey, I'm interested in what you know, what you do, what you have, to, or whatever, to develop potential transactions with people. As long as we're following rules, as long as we're honest, just like anything else, we don't want to misrepresent, that there's nothing wrong with using social media to affect a product or service. I mean, after all, it's no different than we watch TV and we get commercials thrown at us. radio, everywhere else, that people are using their influence to market products. And so have to be careful. I do very little transactional approach on LinkedIn, not opposed to it. If there's someone out there that would like to pay me to speak, train, coach, I'm open to that, but that's not primarily what I'm after. I'm here to presently, especially, to share wisdom and help others to find and gain wisdom for themselves. And so, William, you're one of the things to consider as we engage on social media is what our intent is, what our goals are, because that should be a factor in how we approach it, and really consider it. Let's see. Thank you, Zaid, for your comment. Let's see. Todd comments, I've made several friendships here. We are all drawn to a certain energy. Same phenomenon occurs in person. It's easier to connect face to face, as you stated, and I'll paraphrase, some people create an illusion of self here. Some are playing a role. Eckhart Tolle shares the details of this egoic way of interacting. Personally, I have limited my time here because the platform has changed immensely since I joined. Yeah, and Todd, there is some fake people, fake profiles, or real people with unreal expressions of who they are, and so on. But that is true in life. Now, the difference between one-on-one and in person is it's harder to hide, if you will, in real life, real time, versus social media. It's easier to hide behind the pictures and things like that, because it not being live always, we can edit, just like movies. People get so caught up in movies and TV. It's not real. And it doesn't even always reflect the realities of culture or even supposedly the history that it represents. So we all need wisdom and discernment in regards to that. And yes, LinkedIn has changed over time. It's been interesting. Initially, as some of the change started, there were people that resisted. In fact, some of the ugliest trolling that I received was as part of that transition. Originally back, I started on LinkedIn in 2007. At that point, it was primarily resumes and white papers that were presented by people on different topics or what have you. And nothing wrong with that, nature of it. And it has become more social, if you will, more human, more about a total look at life than just a business look at life. And so, and there were people that just, as this change started occurring, I had people attack me and use profanity and just get real ugly about that, how stupid we were to even consider these changes, and is remarkable. And today it has changed and affected how the perspectives occur, and that is true. But I think the key, though, and this is something about engagement, we need to have some basic common ground rules, if you will, whether it's social media, whether it's in life. It's just less or more difficult to enforce or to influence on social media. But that is, we need to have mutual respect. We have to understand that everyone involved is a human, and that, by the way, none of us have arrived. We don't have all the answers. And as we establish and agree to some basic ground rules, the interactions become valuable rather than just a point of getting likes or getting comments or stirring up trouble. There are some people, their whole delight is putting things out and causing controversy. And I understand how there can be a little bit of value in that, but if that's people's intent, they have another problem to deal with. I think that part of our goal here on social media, whether you're looking to do transaction, develop leads, and develop business, that's fine. But I will tell you, based on my experience and lots of feedback over the years here on LinkedIn, that for you to approach and see everyone as simply and totally a potential lead is an unwise approach here on LinkedIn, because a great majority of people do not like that. They don't want to be seen as simply a transaction waiting to happen. They prefer to be relational first and then transactional later if it fits. Let's see here. Want to get so Zaid makes a comment that he agrees with Todd that the platform is shifting more to becoming social like Facebook or others, but I'm still able to connect with professional people like Kevin and others in this podcast and other groups. Yeah, and what's real interesting is that it's part of a shift, because originally LinkedIn was the business platform, and that was following under a cultural concept that business and life were two different things, and it's part of my generation's way of thinking. It's not personal, it's business, and thinking that way. And I get some of the value in that, but at the end of the day, it is unrealistic, and it is definitely unrealistic relative to my generation, because we were taught and quite often lived that your business life and your personal life were separate. What's interesting is, even for my generation, it wasn't an effective concept. The only reason it worked is that we agreed that it was a workable concept. But the reality is, and I guess I'm part of what some people dislike, because I have supported the change in that life is life. Business is a subset of life. It is not like another half of life. It is a subset. And I can show you on so many levels why that is. And we might do that on a different day. And but let's see here. I believe Gladstone makes comments. I will have to leave now. Thanks a lot, Kevin, for addressing my questions. I really appreciate your kindness. Wish you a wonderful day. Gladstone, glad you were able to join us today and contribute, and look forward to having you back. And let's see here. Todd has a comment. LinkedIn used to be for people to network with others and or move to another position. I recall helping others with their lean transformation projects. The chat groups are a place to learn from each other and share knowledge and wisdom to help. I'd go offline and have people send me videos of press die changers so I could put my eyes on there. Okay. And so, yeah, and LinkedIn is different, no doubt. Is it better or worse? Depends on our perspective and how we approach it. And I think that the key, just like with life, person-to-person life, we need wisdom in our interactions and our relationships, and we need wisdom in our interaction and relationships on social media. And if we approach it wise, we can have value in it. We can grow from it. And by the way, one of the things that I really appreciate about it is many of you here that are part of this podcast, I would never have had the opportunity to know and meet had it not been for LinkedIn. And I'm truly grateful that I have that opportunity. And so I don't see LinkedIn as bad. It has changed. It's what we make of it. William comments, when I started, I was attacked all the time. I thought it was funny because I couldn't see how anyone thought they could have success without something greater than themselves. So when I asked that question, everything changed. God is involved in business just as much as saving souls. There are great people on social media, but everyone isn't buying what they're selling, what we're selling sometimes. And yeah, just consider this is like life. Rarely would any of us walk up to someone that we first meet and stick out our hand and say, "Hey, I'm selling widgets. You want to buy one?" I mean, we could, but we're not going to go very far unless we do that in high volume. Versus we get to know people and find out they need a widget and we have a widget that works, then we can share, "Hey, I've got a solution to your problem." So encourage you as you are on LinkedIn and other social media, approach it wisely, just like we would in real life. In fact, with even more sensitivity on social media because of the potential for misunderstanding, miscommunication, or even fake situations. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means it's another element of life. And if we approach it wisely, we can gain from it and grow from it if we give the opportunity. So, hope that everyone's picked up something today. I know I have gained from all of you, if nothing else, additional perspective, but certainly some insights. And I pray that you have an amazing week this week and that you get to live your design, passion, and purpose so that you can find what abundance we have to offer or have offered to us. And just have a blessed week and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Don't know the topic yet, but if you have a topic suggestion, please throw it out there. Otherwise, I'll be watching the network, be mindful of what you guys are concerned with, and we'll try to address the topic based on that. So take care, everyone. God bless. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to seeing you back next Monday, 8 a.m. here on LinkedIn. Thanks.